End Time Signs, latest events 2020. Welcome everyone. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you so much to my beautiful channel members and Patreons. Let's take a look at some current events that are happening around the world, shall we? Please do remember to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of the upcoming live shows. Which reminds me, Jacob Israel will be coming on the show in a couple of days, so make sure to set your channel notifications for that one, guys. Alright, so it's November 22nd, and this is the End Times News Report. Israeli scientists claim to reverse aging process. Israeli scientists say they have managed to successfully reverse the biological aging process using only oxygen. Recent research led by Tel Aviv University's Professor Shai Effarati, together with a team from Shamir Medical Center, found that when healthy adults over the age of 64 were placed in a pressurized chamber and given pure oxygen for 90 minutes a day, 5 days a week for 3 months, not only was the aging process delayed, it was actually reversed. Specifically, the study, which was published in the peer-reviewed journal Aging, focused on whether the process could reverse two key indicators of biological aging: the shortening of DNA telomeres and the accumulation of resilient sentient cells. A telomere is the end of a chromosome. Telomeres are made of repetitive sequences of non-coding DNA that serve as bumpers to protect the chromosome from damage during replication. Every time replication happens, these bumpers take a hit, making them shorter and shorter. Once the telomere reaches a certain length, the cell cannot replicate anymore, which leads to the sentient cells, or aging, malfunctioning cells that ultimately lead to cognitive or other age-related disabilities and even diseases such as the big bad C, cancer. Some 35 adults over the age of 64 were involved in the study and were administered hyperbaric oxygen therapy, or HBOT, utilizing 100% oxygen in an environmental pressure higher than 1 absolute atmospheres to enhance the amount of oxygen dissolved in the body's tissues. Every 20 minutes, the participants were asked to remove their masks for 5 minutes, bringing their oxygen back to normal levels. However, during this period, researchers saw that fluctuations in the free oxygen concentration were interpreted at the cellular level as a lack of oxygen rather than interpreting the absolute level of oxygen. In other words, repeated intermittent hyperbaric increased oxygen level exposures induced many of the mediators and cellular mechanisms that are usually induced during hypoxia, or decreased oxygen levels. Something Effarati explained is called the hyperhypoxia paradox. The oxygen fluctuation we generated is what is important, he told the Jerusalem Post. During this process, a state of oxygen shortage resulted, which caused all cell regeneration. The practical ramifications include improvements in attention, information processing, speed, and executive functions, which normally decline with aging, and about which more than 50% of people over the age of 60 express concern. According to the study, the changes were equivalent to how the participants' bodies were at the cellular level 25 years earlier. That's amazing. We are not just slowing the decline, we are going backwards in time, Effarati said. Effarati has been studying the aging process for a decade now and runs the Aviv clinics in Florida. This study, he said, is proof that the cellular basis for the aging process can be reversed, adding that it gives hope and opens the door for a lot of young scientists to target aging as a reversible disease. It could also enable doctors and scientists to find a way to monitor telomere length and develop medications that could help them grow back when needed. So, will it make people live longer is the million-dollar question, right? The effect's duration is yet to be determined in the long-term effect, Effarati said, but probably yes. We know that people with shorter telomeres die earlier, so it makes sense. One disadvantage of the study was its limited sample size. Effarati added the experiment was conducted using a scientific monitored hyperbaric oxygen tight sealed chamber, and other people should not try this at home. He said there's a lot of junk out there claiming sacks inflated with air are hyperbaric treatments. This is not what is being used in the studies. It is not effective, and moreover, it could be dangerous. John Kerry says Great Reset is needed to stop rise of populism. Former Secretary of State John Kerry attended a panel discussion at the World Economic Forum, during which he asserted that a Great Reset was urgently needed to stop the rise of populism. Kerry vowed that under a Biden administration, America would rejoin the job-killing Paris Climate Agreement, but that this was not enough. The notion of a reset is more important than ever before, Kerry said. I personally believe we are at the dawn of an extremely exciting time, he goes on to say. The former senator made it clear that this reset, which is merely a rebranding of the same New World Order that has faced stiff resistance for the past 2 decades, is necessary to extinguishing populism. I think Europe has to look at that with Brexit and the rising national populism or nationalistic populism, said Kerry. Which is really one of the priorities that we all have to address. You can't dismiss it. Speaking about how Trump increased his vote in 2020, Kerry noted, what astounds me is that as many people still voted for the level of chaos and breach of law and order and breaking the standards, and I think that the underlying reason for that is something that everybody has to examine. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen also welcomed the prospect of Biden as a friend in the White House to the globalists and said the two entities would work on a new rulebook for the digital economy and the digital society. State of emergency in the Russian Far East after destructive unseasonal ice storm collapses all key infrastructure systems. Extreme weather. This is something that's been happening all around the world for years now. The Bible also talks about this kind of stuff happening in the last days. Secularists and people who deny eschatology may try to pass it off as natural, but one thing I think is undeniable and impossible to ignore is the frequency and severity at which these events are occurring. Several people froze to death and over 150,000 were left without electricity, water, and heating in the Russian Far East after a destructive unseasonal ice storm hit the region on November 18, 2020. The chief regional meteorologist said wires and trees were encrusted in up to 1.2 centimeters or half an inch of ice, an occurrence not seen in over 30 years. In the city of Vladivostok, Russia's Pacific capital, all key systems from electricity, water, and heating to transport and communication collapsed after the storm downed frozen trees and ice-laden power lines. Temporary accommodation centers were opened for residents on November 19th, with snow and strong winds continuing into November 20th. The destruction is widespread and the electricity may not be restored to some homes for several days. Several people froze to death, like I said, and there's over 150,000 left without power, water, heating, electricity. In the Russian Far East, this is the worst ice storm they've had, guys, in over 30 years. I don't know how they're still doing now and how many people are in the temporary accommodation centers, but as of now, they're still in a state of emergency. The destruction was so widespread that they don't even really know how many people have froze yet, guys, and how many people are without power, but these are just rough estimates we're getting. Boris Kubay, the chief of the regional meteorologist service, said the situation has been aggravated by a strong gale wind that breaks everything. Kubay said the ice storm was a result of a clash between two storms, one carrying hot air and the other carrying cold. So wires and trees were encrusted in up to 1.2 centimeters of ice, an occurrence not seen in over 30 years, Kubay said. Again, several people froze to death and over 150,000 are still without electricity, water, and heating in the far east of Russia. Local businessmen open restaurants and are out on the streets offering free food. Many people get water by melting ice in cooking pans. Conference of Christian Churches refuses to take a stand condemning abortion. An Oklahoma Catholic bishop withdrew his diocese from an ecumenical religious organization this month after it refused to acknowledge that unborn babies are discriminated against by society. The AP or Associated Press reports Bishop David Condelera, who leads the Diocese of Tulsa, announced his decision to leave the Oklahoma Conference of Churches on November 6th. The OCC will not commit itself to defending the right to life of babies in the womb, the most marginalized, mistreated, abused, and discriminated against group in the country, Condelera said in a statement. OCCS's statement, with its glaring exclusion of the most vulnerable group of persons in our midst, is rendered at best inconsistent or even politically motivated. The impetus for Condelera's decision was a statement that the conference released in October on racism and discrimination, according to the report. The bishop said the conference refused to include unborn babies, more than 800,000 of whom are aborted every single year in the U.S., in its statement. The Oklahoma Conference of Churches, or the OCC, statement read, in part, "No person should experience discrimination regardless of their sex, religion, race, immigration status, sexual orientation, political affiliation, age, gender identity/gender expression," whatever that means, ability, or socioeconomic status. Wow, those people sure accept everyone at that place, eh? Except for unborn babies, it seems. The Reverend Shannon Fleck, the executive director of the conference, said she stands by her statement, according to the report. Fleck said the conference has never taken a stance on abortion because it's a continuous issue, even among churches. Meanwhile, unborn babies continue to be slaughtered by the millions across the globe. According to New World-O-Meter abortion statistics, there were an average of 3.5 million abortions per month in the world so far in 2020. That means approximately 38 million unborn babies were aborted so far this year. Many of these unborn babies are discriminated against not just because they are in the womb, but also because they are the children of poor or minority women, or because they have a disability. Two of the largest abortion chains in the world, Planned Parenthood and Mary Stopes International, were founded by women who believe strongly in the discriminatory notion that some human beings are less valuable than others. Leftists suggest re-education camps, firing squads, banning talk radio to reprogram 75 million Trump supporters. Leftists responded to a Twitter thread asking, "How do you deprogram 75 million people?" by suggesting Trump supporters should be interned in re-education camps and that all conservative talk radio should be banned. No, seriously, how do you deprogram 75 million people? Where do you start? Fox? Facebook? Asked David Atkins, a regional director for California Democrats. He goes on to say, "We have to start thinking in terms of post-World War II Germany or Japan. Or the failures of Reconstruction in the South," he added. While asserting the moral high ground, many of the responses in the thread demanded outright tyranny or yet more censorship as means of ensuring the good guys have their way. One verified user called for the Nuremberg trials. "I would look at Germany and see what they did about Nazis. Because you're dealing with the same mentality," said another. "Re-education camps for those salvageable," said another. "Firing squad for the irredeemable malcontents. Round up entire families to ensure the disease doesn't spread. Generally speaking, I believe re-education camps are a good thing," added another. Another called for the removal of radio talk show hosts from airwaves through rigorous application of hate speech laws. "Cut them off completely. End the flow of false information suddenly and immediately," said another, calling for all right-wing news outlets to die. Another respondent called for banning Trump flags. So yeah, guys, those were all actual real tweets from leftists, and that's actually how they think and feel about conservatives. It's quite shocking, really, I must say. U.S. Appeals Court rules bans on therapy for unwanted same-sex attraction unconstitutional. A federal appeals court on Friday ruled that bans on therapy for minors struggling with unwanted same-sex attraction violate the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. In a 2-1 decision, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 11th Circuit declared unconstitutional 2 ordinances banning sexual orientation change efforts therapy, which is often diversely called conversion therapy, in the city of Boca Raton and Palm Beach County, Florida. The court noted in its decision that in late 2017, Palm Beach County and Boca Raton had joined a growing list of states and municipalities that prohibit conversional therapies called sexual orientation change efforts. So let me get this straight, no pun intended. If a young person thinks they might be attracted to the same sex, and this is something they do not want and are struggling with, and they genuinely want to try to seek help for this, you're telling me that it's unconstitutional for them to seek help? Wow. That disgusts me. It really does. What is this world coming to? These people, and when I say these people, I mean gay rights activists and stuff like that, they don't only want equal rights and to be treated fairly. Oh no. It seems very clear to me that they want complete and utter domination of society. They're not even allowing a youth who actually wants help to seek it. That just seems like so wrong to me. Thanks for watching, guys. Make sure to subscribe and please leave a comment down below. God bless you all.